I mean, the largest assignment fee that I ever had was almost $500,000, and it was on an $11 million property in Bel Air. And we actually ended up getting it to an end buyer. And he said, "Did you guys make $500,000 off of this thing?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I don't care. I got exactly what I wanted. I paid what I wanted to pay." And at that price point, too, they're really just trading their cash for the toy that they want. And it's a very small, especially in single family, there's a very small competition pool of people that actually have the cojones to take down properties like that. And the conversation is much more elevated because, I'll be damned, the person who owns that house had enough acumen and had enough smarts to afford an $11 million property. So you're having a much more elevated conversation, and they're not getting beat up. You call somebody on a $300,000 house, in East, South, Southern California, and they're going to say, "Okay, another one of you, what's your lowball offer?" But when you're talking to somebody in Beverly Hills that has a $15 million, mansion, they say things like, "That's really interesting. Tell me more." It's a totally different conversation. And, it allows you to put the blinders on them that they don't have the competition bugging them.
Yeah. And in that price level, as you just said, $500,000 doesn't really necessarily change the deal. They're like, "Oh,
nope.
I want to get 12 for it." "Well, I got 11 and a half. Okay, that's close enough to 12.
Yeah.
Good. Let's take it."
Yep.
And then you wholesale it for 12 again. And that's something big, particularly beginning investors often don't understand. They're going like for the cheapest thing, or they're calculating stuff always like by the dollar. Like I've had conversations with people, they're like, even completely unrelated, they're like, "The ticket to this event is $500. I can't possibly eat and drink as much to make the $500 worth it." That's
right.
their way of thinking.
Sure.
And it's like, no, the $500 has nothing to do with what you eat and drink. The food is going to be crappy because it's like mass-produced food there.
Right.
Like you've never been to an event with 1,000 people and gotten good food. Like
right.
It's some rubber chicken, and the drinks are going to be the same as you get in any other hotel. It's who you meet at those events. It's the networking you do at that event. It's who you bring to the event as a award or reward or something like that, and the appreciation you get for bringing them to that event. It's an investment into some completely other things than just food and beverage.
Sure.
And it's kind of the same kind of thinking, even though it's a completely different kind of thing. You're dealing with a completely different mindset. It's a completely different level of thinking when you talk to people about an $11 million house than you talk to them about a $300,000 house.
Yeah.
The conversations, the thing, the pain points, the subject matters, like what matters is just, it's not even in the same universe.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it didn't end up happening, but I was working on a 14.2, I think it's where we had it under contract, 14, or maybe it was 14.3. I think it was about $14.3 million apartment in Manhattan. And it was very easy. It was the only one in the building. And it was an inherited property, and there was 5 siblings that had inherited this property. The challenge about doing anything in New York is both buyer and seller have to both be represented by a real estate attorney. In this instance, all 5 of the siblings hated one another. So they all 5 had their own individual real estate attorneys that were all fighting against each other over here. And then we have the buyer attorney over here just saying, "Figure it out and let me know when I come in." And it ended up stalling out, and the siblings ended up saying, "Well, we're just going to rent it out." Horrible. But because it was the only one in the building, we had buyers all over the place that were bidding 15, 15.1, 15.2. I mean, it could have very easily pushed itself to be $1 million assignment fee because the inventory wasn't there. And, in Manhattan, if you get the right place in the right building and you have that kind of cash flow, what's the difference between 4.2, 4.3, and 15 million if you win? And the buyers in that upper echelon, that's splitting hairs for them. But for us, that's huge. That's a huge amount of money, especially when you're doing an assignment of contract and you have very little skin in the game to do so.
That's a mindset shift that definitely is, it takes a little bit for most people to do that. But once you get it, it's you just unlocked 10x your profit.
Oh, yeah.
Essentially there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, lead cost, getting that was a PPC lead. And, lead costs in Manhattan can be somewhat pricey.
Sure.
But so that was back in the Tark Buys Houses era. And I was spending close to $500,000 a month in digital marketing, as well as TV commercials in select markets and radio commercials. And, I'm not telling everybody to go out and spend $500,000 a month on marketing. I had a celebrity that was very, that was well known to be able to cart that into people's homes. But spending that kind of money, you can start to see those returns. And if you're targeting and you're geo-targeting the right leads, you can find those properties where you can actually turn a huge profit. And in Southern California, our average profits were anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000. Typically all the time. So when you start adding those up, you do 10, $250,000 spreads, you're at $2.5 million. And that's 10 deals in a month. I mean, obviously you're peppering in some of the lower deals, but
sure.
Even in SoCal, we really heavily targeted a few select markets nationwide, about 14 markets nationally. But it was really focused heavily in California and in Tulsa, where we were buying a lot of rental properties. Oklahoma has very little ebbs and flows as far as the market change. So it's a good place to buy and hold. But in Southern California, I mean, we weren't even touching deals if it wasn't going to give us $50,000, $60,000 on an assignment fee. And it was like just cherry picking, especially when there was no inventory and people were overspending for houses by hundreds of thousands of dollars because there was no inventory and interest rates were on the floor.
Yeah.
So it's a different market today than it was
very
then.
much a different market. So